morning, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda and this is Jar of Marbles. Well, g'day, I'm so glad that you're able to make it. Here we are, already at episode 56. Time's just going in. I know, crikey, episode 56. They say, time waits for no one man. This week, I decided I wanted to talk a little bit about the third act. Within this generation, an extra 30 years have been added to our life expectancy, and these years aren't just a footnote or a pathology. Jane Fonda asks how we can think about this new phase of our lives. An entire second adult lifespan, we are now living 34 years longer. Society, the world is still trying to grapple with old paradigms about age. Think about what this means in terms of possibilities. The third act has its own developmental stage, different from being a kid, a midlife, being an adult, being 60 and over. It has its own force. I'm living it and can attest to this. I'm told I'm amazing by some, and honestly, I don't feel particularly amazing. I have always enjoyed life, and in between the crazy hard stuff, it was wonderful, and it's still wonderful. I think and research about the subject continually, and so much has changed that the history books require updating. Age not as pathology, but age as potential. How we feel and the way we think has a huge role to play in how we navigate our life. Positive people also have negative thoughts. They just don't let those thoughts control them. We all get bad news and it can throw us into a tailspin and it can feel so very overwhelming that at some point, hopefully day 2 or 3, after the news, you decide that you have no power over what has transpired, but you're going to get on with being happy enough anyway. And it does help because depending on what the shipful news is, your role may be supporting someone. And if that be the case, then being in the moment with a glimmer of glee actually does come in handy. When my husband back in 2012 was diagnosed with stage 3B lung cancer, it was a diagnosis where he was not expected to survive. He was given 15 months at that moment to live. And in front of the cancer specialist, I swung round in my seat and said, well, that doesn't have to be your story. The look of sheer horror come anger that formed on the doctor's face is forever imprinted in my memory. It was harrowing, but at the same time, we still laughed anyway. I walked funny down the street, wore funny hats to a lot of his meetings and did the can-can and waiting rooms. We did a lot of laughing. And not be caught in the trap of acting dead while still being very alive. Yes, we all cope in different ways. There were tears, fears amongst the horrible tests, the radiation, the burning of his skin, the chemo, the intake of poison, the big bag of chemo, the nurse dressed in protective gear as she would absorb some of the chemo too, no matter how much she protected herself. I remember the sandwiches. Oh, me too, Bob. I kind of really enjoyed them. Yeah, me too. I would think so, Bob. At one point, great news. There was an incorrect diagnosis where they said, no, you don't have cancer after all. And 10 minutes later, sorry, that was incorrect news. You do, and it's actually worse than we realised. That was like being thrown out of a skyscraper. Yeah, well put, Bob. There was a sitting with very sick people looking grey and lifeless, people sleeping on the floor at the hospital, unhappy and withered and really, really sick. We saw people disappearing from the waiting rooms after months, the ones that didn't make it. We would sit and laugh quietly at our stupid one-liners with each other and smile to any eyes that met ours. There was the loss of his hair, all of his thick hair gone, and the wearing of caps suddenly. He had a mechanical workshop that he ran for 40 years, went there every day. He had to show up clearly bald. He couldn't even do that in private. He was there every day, Saturday included, ride his motorbike to his chemo treatments and go to his business every day, having employees. He had to. He felt compelled to. I was grateful he felt that he had to keep going, and he did. He was living. He kept going and going. He never stopped. There was the overconsumption of alcohol that he drank to cope with the fear and the darkness of his life expectancy. There was the bad news that the cancer had come back and was even more stronger than ever and spreading quickly. Then there was the lobectomy to remove one lung. And then there was another lobectomy to remove the top nodule, leaving him with something like 44% lung capacity. There are 1,000 stories in between and after all of this, but we decided that we were going to make it, and we are here to say he did. He is well and surprisingly strong. So when I say that I decided to carry on anyway, it is based on that story and a handful of other narratives and horrors that life delivers. I said to my husband on more than one occasion, if the cancer doesn't get you, I bloody will. And we'd giggle, or I would. He might find it, funny later. Yeah, but that's not funny. Makes it even funnier, Bob, especially in hindsight. Many of us have these stories as part of our quilt squares of life. There are patches that are sewn in nicely and others that are just plain messy. Welcome to the third act. In case you need the reminder, being strong does not mean doing it alone or without support. The strongest person knows when to ask for help or when they need perspective. I was really lucky to have my 3 daughters who helped just by being there and offering up their concerns and asking questions, and helped me to understand too. We are meant for meaningful connection, especially when we feel adrift. I guess too, when you're not used to getting support or your needs met, prioritising yourself could even feel selfish. Your comfort zone is not always a good benchmark, is it? Maybe just contemplate that one for a second. Hashtag the third act. Aptly called that by Jane Fonda. It made such an impact when I first heard her saying that, describing the last part of our stay here on planet Earth. And being so aware of this is the final part of life has made me all the more determined to go for it, regardless of the naysayers, the non-believers, the ones who clearly are not interested at all in what I do. Do not sell yourself short. I remember over the years being told not to sell myself short. At first I kind of understood but didn't really get what they were getting at. There are different ways we can sell ourselves short, isn't there? And when I considered it, I recall how I couldn't ask for help as other life experiences had burnt so badly. It just wasn't, and still isn't to a degree, something that I can do. Some of the ways you can sell yourself short is by not giving yourself enough credit. Now that's a good one, isn't it? Yeah, I had no idea how well I had done supporting my husband until we were safely over the line, because then I realised, apart from our kids, no one rang, no one rolled up to our door to check on us. I think actually that's not completely true. I think there was like 2 people who rang once, and we're talking over a span of years. It was a very revealing time. I was mad and saddened by it, but over time it melted away like the snow. It was a stand-up lesson. It was very clear and who cared and who did not. And then sometimes it's not that simple either. It's just very hard for people to face. And I also respect that very much. But people stayed away at a time when I really needed that understanding. I dug deeper and understood that for the average punter, facing someone who may be dying is not in our toolbox. Turns out it's in mine. Another sign of selling yourself short is putting your dreams on hold, perhaps because you don't think you're worthy of them, or life provides scenarios that can't be ignored. I do think I suffered from that one at various points when life got too heavy and I just couldn't see my way out. I had lost a foothold on dreams completely. And further to that, had lost my whole self in that whole debacle, because with all that my husband was going through, I was also going through some other heavy-duty, life-changing situations, all of which I will always be grateful for, because it woke me up and it shook me up. I don't know whether it shook me up and woke me up or woke me. Anyway, I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about, Jess. But isn't it true, though, that sometimes the so-called bad experiences can offer unusual and unexpected rewards that do not appear like that or as that at the time, but hindsight provides a clarity that could not have been found otherwise. It is a blessing to have found gold in otherwise very ordinary and frightening life experiences. And many of us, most of us will have, by the time we have hit our 60s, have a number of things that we can mostly say we could have done without. But for me, personally, certain things had to happen because I couldn't have grown in the way I have otherwise. And I think there is a certain amount of safety that when you can look at something from a distance and you can go, oh yeah, that wasn't much fun. And thank goodness that it is. I can now say it's quite a while ago now. I have at times looked to the sun and felt a deep gratitude that I get to tell the tale that I had learnt so much. Learning is always being important to me, and laughing. My 3 kids were and are always my biggest love. I am lucky in so many ways. Hashtag the third act. This stage of my life, and for so many of us, we can understand why people can get so set in their ways. They have probably had enough of the BS, having to work around others for so long. And in my mind, I am thinking when, as a single parent, at times I had to work around the father and his family, and it was always unpleasant. I felt I had to be very careful, but only to keep my kids safe. Hence why, in the third act, it has taken me a bit of time to get what I would have been what I would have called being selfish. But it was never being selfish. I was never being selfish. Now that I'm over that, I love my own time. I'm a busy girl. I have a few irons in the fire and still learning. I'm learning new software right now, as a matter of fact, and I am nowhere ready to stop. Life is getting even more interesting than I could have anticipated. But that's thanks to me. I'll just give myself a little bit of applause if you don't mind. Hold on a minute. Where do you come from, applause when I need you? Thank you so much. No one gets to steal my thunder or make up stories. It's a bit of a yawn, really. No, when like so many parents, mostly mums, I was doing all the yards on my own. There was zero support coming from any of our family members at all. We were all left to get on with it, and we bloody well did. I believe it got up their noses because I was so happy and so liberated, relieved to have the half-wits out of my life and my kids for these great big blocks of time. And they were just so happy too, which was just fantastic. And my kids always say when the subject arises that they have great memories of being, children, that they loved being a band of girls and how safe and happy they felt with me. The rest I had no control over. Look, I can sleep at night, no regrets. The rest couldn't give a fig. It must be ordinary being really, truly less than ordinary. But that's being polite. You're very polite. I am, Bob, yes. So there will be no selling short business going on with this little duck or with you, marble dwellers. And I'm loving the moments. And sometimes there is such beauty to be found in moments. And as Brené Brown said, I don't have to chase extraordinary moments to find happiness. It's right in front of me if I'm paying attention and practicing gratitude. That is so true. And it has come to my attention many times, or at least the confirmation that big things come from small actions made consistently over time. The operative word being consistency. That's right, Bob. That's a good chunk of most recipes. And so it is true also to say that with the third act, as I do not waste energy and time trying to explain my growth, it's like trying to talk to a wall, really, especially those who have played it safe all their lives. They won't have the vision and won't understand. It's a little more of the self-acceptance stance. It's the simple act of loving yourself and surrender to who you are. I recall years ago reading To Not Hide Your Strength, that we are stronger than we know. I have had to hide my strength in my younger years because it would upset the ding-dongs and it would have fallen on my kids' heads. There are times and places, right? That's why the third act is so scrumptious. Don't have to work, shimmy around the boringness anymore. Well and truly time, marble dwellers, to make your happiness a priority. We are not in the business of playing small. Never forget that self-love is not selfish. It's essential. Your happiness will thank you. How does your happiness thank you? It's an inside job, Bob. All enoughness is already inside you, and that the only opinion that matters about you is yours. So scrub up that self-love if it's not stellar. A saying by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It's not true that people stop pursuing their dreams because they grow old. They grow old because they stop pursuing their dreams. Oh my gosh, that is just such a good one. Oh yes, I agree. Totally and utterly, for sure. Really, the power of being good enough is a tough journey. And that's my own story I'm reflecting on. It takes perseverance and perseverance and a willingness to face your fears. And that in itself is kind of legendary, because how many of us had truly ordinary experiences that you just had to go through? There was no choice. It was pushing through and so far from your comfort zone, and all this to get to understand and know the truest version of you. It's that whole certainty that you are and have done your best with what you had, and that was and will always be enough. You really have to give yourself, you've got to give yourself and ourselves credit for what we have passed through at any age. But as many of us arriving into and have safely frocked up well into our third act, we have with a degree of confidence and conviction that enough is enough, and we are well and truly enough. Shit, yeah. All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It just seems to me that if you want to increase your quality of life, you need to increase your level of self-worth. It all comes back to that, how we feel about ourselves. Don't worry about fooling anybody. Just don't kid yourself. As mentioned in another podcast, you are the CEO of your life. Accept people as they are, but place them where they belong. Hire, fire, and promote accordingly. Say it loud for the people in the back. Hear, hear, Bob. As you will know, some people just don't seem to change. And as you witness your own growth, it's really hard to believe that people would choose to stay there and that this is actually so. Now and then, life will provide proof of this. Growth is never an option for toxic people because they're too comfortable in their little bubble. Interestingly, it has come to my attention that there are those who follow to see what you're doing, not how you're doing. Geez, how true is that? By the time you're entrenched and committed to your third act, you've crossed through many valleys, and some you may have thought would never end. It sure can feel like that, can't it? This is what makes the third act so liberating, so thrilling, all the while necessary. This is it, folks. This is the final ascent to do what you want to do. Is there anything that you'd like to do? I asked myself this question, and one thing I really wanted was to have piano lessons. I'm a songwriter, and I wanted to increase my songwriting capabilities, and many of my songs have been composed on my guitar or just vocally. And as of last week, I started piano lessons, and I'm giving myself this gift. And that just came about just by a conversation I was having with a newly found friend, and she was a little bit taken aback that I write music without being able to read music. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I've always wanted to learn, how to play the piano. And she said, I play the piano. I'll teach you. And it was like, wow. So it was amazing. Am I getting a gift? Yes, Bob. Point is, what gifts can any of us give ourselves? We think we have forever. No one is guaranteed any time. That's why I really know I'm lucky to have got this far. For example, I read the other day about what middle age actually is. And I always thought it'd be 50, but 50 is supposed to be middle-aged. But how many people actually live healthily or even just until they're actually 100? Not many. So it turns out 35 is the new middle age, and 70 is the average age that people make it to in Australia and New Zealand. Statistics say as of 2020 that it's around about 83. Either way, time is of the essence. So let's get to it. So that means I have just over 7 years to go. Oh, that's if I don't come undone. I don't know about you, but that's a little bit scary. And of course there are always exceptions, but dang. So here's the thing. We will have all had many, many hard days. We have survived 100% of our worst days. And yet, here we are. I'm here to remind you that you are the shizzle. It does not matter what anybody else thinks. It turns out you may have been too hard on yourself, and looks like you never gave up along the way. Opinions of others? None of your business. You are your business. Follow your dreams instead. There's the goods right there. Your dreams know the way. Hashtag my third act. My job, your job as a Queen Age of Marble Dwellers is to love yourself as you are. We are not here to be mean and unkind to ourselves. I can see my aging and myself aging, and I tell myself I love me very much as I would a dear friend. There's no war with me in my body. It has got me around for years and still getting me around. Thanks, body. Most of us have had a life of self-hate, self-loathing and destructive thinking. And when I say most of us, I'm just meaning that it is really prevalent. While not everyone will admit it, but certainly there's a lot of people out there that have really just turned on themselves. And it's always for the most saddest and most unfortunate reasons. And so kind words can sort of slip off like a raindrop, right? The third act is very much coming home to ourselves if our intent is, that be because beating ourselves up for not being perky and young anymore is a waste of time and kind of silly. I look in the mirror and I can see I am aging, and it comes as a bloody relief, if I'm to be honest. I'm tossing around the notion of letting all my platinum, white and grey come through. I think I am sort of ready. I feel good about it either way. I have seen many eras and styles, and I'm wanting to give to myself what is a compliment and a testament to my age. I don't want to be young. I've been young. Been there, done that. Hashtag my third act. Turns out it is filled with wonderful gifts. I've given myself the gift with doing this podcast. Bob, a Twitch channel thingy coming up, my music, my art, piano lessons, and keeping fit, constantly learning about brain health and body health. Life has sped up a bit for me, or I have sped up my life with things to do. And like all things, this will all change. But until then, I have a bit to do. By choice. So validating oneself is very 2023, I feel. Negativity is contagious. Unhappiness is contagious. Fear is contagious. But so is happiness, so is optimism, and so is love. Surround yourself with people who bring out the best in you and strive to be a reflection of what you want to receive. Well, looks like we've come to the end of another podcast. Our third act. I hope you've enjoyed it. A bit of food for thought. Don't be fooled into thinking that all paths look the same. You're not here to walk their road. You're here to change the game. Love it. Say g'day to the family for me. Give the snake a friendly squeeze. And I'll see you next time. Okay.
Bye. See you later. Bye.